I got advice from a billionaire that changed my life. In the next few minutes, I'll share with you what that advice was, as well as how using that advice can actually be quite dangerous if we use it incorrectly. But first, I'm going to tell you who this billionaire is. The billionaire in question is Richard Koch. Richard Koch is an investor, and he's also the author of the very famous book, The 80-20 Principle, which is one of the foundational books that actually inspired Tim Ferriss on his path to building his business, becoming an entrepreneur, and writing the 4-Hour Work Week. In 2014, I had an opportunity to meet Richard in person and actually sit front and center at a presentation he gave in Chicago. Now, I got to tell you that me going to this event was very, very dicey for me. I'd made only $72,000 the year before, and this event was going to cost me $10,000 to attend. So suffice to say that I could not afford this was an understatement. I just had this sneaking suspicion, though, that I was going to hear something that would change my life. And I also had the realization that if I was looking to get more clients, then I needed to be in rooms with higher level, more accomplished, wealthier people. And who can attend a $10,000 event? People who can afford a $10,000 event. Now, it's Perry Marshall who flew Richard in from Portugal. I had studied with Perry Marshall before, and everything he'd ever done was absolutely above board, very high quality. All the people I'd met through Perry were also very high end as well. High character, high skill, high talent, high vision. And so the fact that Perry was involved really, really helped as well. So I booked the tickets completely on credit cards, no idea exactly how I was going to pay it off. And the time came, September 2014, for me to jump on a plane and head to Chicago. So I got to Chicago, I shook Perry's hand, thanked him for putting this all together, and sat down front and center. When the time came, a few minutes later, the crowd rose, clapped as Mr. Richard Koch entered the room. Richard took center stage and started sharing his view on 80-20 and how it had helped him to amass his net worth. Now, at the time, his net worth was $600 million. He was actually, I think, just behind or just ahead Ringo Starr of the Beatles on Britain's rich list. And in the years since that day, about 10 years ago, Richard's net worth has since climbed to beyond $1 billion. So Richard is really, really a fascinating thinker. He's written the 80-20 rule and he's applied it to investing. And so he's explaining all these different concepts, and I'm just kind of in awe seeing how this brilliant brain works. And this is where the advice came. This is where the single question actually that Richard Koch asked, and I'll tell you that this dramatically changed my life. And this is not hyperbole or hype to say it changed my life, because fundamentally changed how I thought about business, which then caused me to actually change my business altogether. And changing my business altogether dramatically then changed both the amount of income that I could make as well as my lifestyle. And by lifestyle, yes, I mean I could afford a few nicer things, but I actually mean my psychic load, just being lightened. And so this question, to this day, it still resonates with me. I still think about it probably 2 to 4 times a year. I revisit this question and it pushes my thinking and pushes my thinking and pushes my thinking. Now, I'm gonna just warn you quickly here. The question is gonna seem really simple, and the impact that your answers come from this question, you're probably going to feel a ton of resistance before you actually get your breakthrough. So it doesn't take long to go through this one question, but you might have a lot of resistance. I'll just warn you ahead of time. So Richard, when he asked the question, and I heard it for the first time on that fateful day in Chicago in 2014, I actually had like temper tantrum Tim come up, and I was just like, no, I'm too smart. I'm too valuable. You don't understand my business. My business is different. I had all these objections coming up. And I then had this kind of crazy moment where for 2 to 3 minutes, I got World War III in my head just bouncing around. And then after that, I hit this moment where I stop and I'm thinking to myself, Tim, you spent 10 G's to be here. On the stage in front of you is a man who wrote the book, The 80-20 Principle, and his net worth is beyond $600 million. You are seated front and center. There could be no better seat in the house. If there was ever a time to take the coaching, this might be it. And then I thought to myself, if I'm not willing to take the coaching, I might as well literally pack up my books and laptop and walk right out of the back of the room, get straight on a plane, and go back home to Canada. Because if I'm not willing to take this coaching in this moment, what am I doing here? So thankfully, my ego got pushed to the side. My creativity came in. And I'll tell you that as soon as my brain opened for just a sliver of daylight to shine through to answer this question, suddenly, instantly like that, I knew all the answers to the question. And it took like maybe 3 seconds. So you're probably wondering, what is this question? This is the question. Richard stood on stage and said, what would have to be true about your business such that you could maintain or increase profits while working only 1 hour per day? I'll say it again. What would have to be true about your business such that you could maintain or increase profits while working only 1 hour per day? Now, at the time, I had a marketing agency, and I'm thinking an hour a day, but I'm the one who writes the copy, and I'm the salesperson, and I'm the strategist, and I'm the one who works, like 12 hours a day. There's no way that I could ever work just 1 hour a day. He doesn't understand my business. He doesn't understand my clients. He doesn't understand my industry. It's just never going to happen. And that's the objection in my head, back and forth. But then I had that moment of like, Tim, take the coaching. And my mind said, okay, fine. Just put it to the side. Let's just make believe. Let's just pretend it's possible. What's there? And that's when my 3 answers came. I'd need to hire a salesperson. I would need to hire a strategist, and I would need to hire a copywriter. If I did those 3 things, and only those 3 things, I could bring those people in. They could work with the other people that I'd already contracted. I had a Google AdWords manager. I had a graphic designer, et cetera, et cetera. And just like that, I could be working literally 1 hour per day. Then coming off of that realization, I said, well, those are expensive people to hire. Like a strategist is not cheap. A copywriter, a good copywriter is not cheap. And so then it dawned on me, well, then I would have to have a lot more clients, or I would have to have even higher level clients. And when I thought about that, and I thought about the clients that I had, and I had some clients paying me some good money, it dawned on me, I didn't want more of those clients. Because although they were paying me well and we were doing really great work together, they also really expected me to be on call 24/7. If they had a text at 7 p.m. on a Sunday, they expected an answer quite quickly. And I thought of having like double or triple those kinds of clients in my world. And I was just like, no, never in a million years. Now, perhaps there's some assumptions I had that were not true. And given the benefit of hindsight of 10 years of additional experience, I can say there's probably some incorrect assumptions I had, and maybe it would have been possible. And maybe the clients were perfectly good. I may never know. What I decided though was I needed a different business model altogether. And that's when I took this big zoom out. I looked at, I've got this marketing agency. On the side, I'd gotten really good at hiring executive assistants for myself. I had failed 5 times at getting assistants and was so frustrated. I built my own hiring funnel and built my own training method and whatnot. And I had gotten tremendous freedom. I had finally cracked the code on getting a great assistant who was kind of like a mini-me style assistant who could handle my inbox and my calendar and, could more or less run the business in my absence for a week. Maybe not grow the business, but make sure it doesn't implode in my absence. So I had cracked that code, and some other entrepreneur friends had kind of been asking me if I could help them get an assistant too. So this is where the danger comes in. This is where this danger comes in. The danger comes that Richard asks this question about working 1 hour a day, and the danger is we take that and think about it as, oh, well, I'm just going to work 1 hour a day. I'm just going to kind of throw some people together and they can all just figure it out. And I'm just going to sit in the sun, I'm going to sit on the beach drinking Mai Tais. And there's a very consumption energy about that. There's a very get rich quick vibe about that it's maybe sounds like a sexy message, but it is just not based in reality. And so we have to be careful to not take Richard's question and advice that way. Instead, we need to take the advice more from the place of, how do I graduate from being a service provider myself to how do I build a system or a machine that can deliver the results for me and deliver the results for my clients. And so it kind of brings to mind many years ago. I mean, it's got to be 15, 20 years ago. I'd heard something from Robert Kiyosaki, and I don't know if it was his quote or he got it from somewhere else, but he basically said to go from, to go from being a service provider to owning a true business that kind of runs itself, that is the machine. We can only include that which can pass through the eye of a needle. And I thought about that and I'm like, well, okay, an eye of a needle is tiny, right? It's super, super small. A human being can't pass through the eye of a needle. It's just too small. But you know what can pass through the eye of a needle is ideas. Ideas, systems, checklists, workflows, a digital slide deck can pass through the eye of a needle. An online ad can pass through the eye of a needle. A great signature talk can pass through the eye of a needle. Great relationships with referral partners, that can pass through the eye of a needle. And so as I'm thinking about my marketing agency and I'm thinking about how I know how to get executive assistants, I'm suddenly realizing that if I can productize myself and how I know how to hire great assistants, that's a business that could pass through the eye of the needle. And it wouldn't be a question of me being lazy doing only 1 hour a week of work. It would be a question of I've built such a great system I've gone very, very deep on this very narrow service offering of helping people to get an executive assistant, that system, that machine could pass through the eye of the needle. So I slowly faded out on my marketing company and I slowly started doing more and more executive assistant hiring for my fellow entrepreneurs. And I tested the concept of, first I thought actually an online course where I taught people how to get an executive assistant would be really valuable. I was going to call the course Get a Great Assistant. So a really extraordinary product development strategy, like if you're ever thinking of developing a new product or new service, is called Scrum. I got certified in Scrum 3 days after I heard about it because it's such an incredible system for developing new ideas. And so there's a great book called Scrum, The Art of Getting Twice Done in Half the Time by Jeff Sutherland, highly recommended. And after I came back from my Scrum training, I took this idea of this online course and I created my minimum viable product. Shout out to Lean Startup by Eric Ries as well. And in my minimum viable product, I basically said, what is the smallest increment of this concept that I could create and put it in front of an end user and get their feedback? And so at first I was like, well, I could maybe just create one lesson in this online course. And then I was like, nah, that would still be a lot of work and I wouldn't probably get a lot of feedback. And I said, well, okay, what's smaller than that? And what's smaller than creating this whole online course and smaller than creating just even one episode or one lesson is a syllabus. Just like in high school or university, in the first class of the semester, you get the course outline, right? Or the syllabus. And it says, here's everything that we're going to cover. And so I just created one of those. And then I had to find some end users. So I went to this mastermind put on by Dr. Jeremy Weiss and John Corcoran. It was in a place called Austin, Texas. I had no idea a few years later I would actually end up moving to Austin, which is where I live now. And in the mastermind, I had printed off, I think 14 copies of the syllabus. And when it was my turn to have hot seat time, I proudly placed my syllabus in front of each of the 14 people who were at the mastermind. And in my mind, I thought it was such a good idea. This is basically a done deal. They're just going to say, yep, this is brilliant. Take my credit card, right? So after I hand everyone their copy of the syllabus, I'm standing in front of this, circle, this room in this boardroom at this beautiful resort. And I say, what would have to be changed about this syllabus such that you would give me your credit card today to buy this? And in my head, I'm thinking like, there's probably nothing that has to change because this is dang good, right? So it's silent in the room. And this one participant, his name is Robert Hartline from Nashville, Tennessee. He owned, I think, 6 or 7 Verizon stores, puts his hand up and says, Tim, I'm going to tell you what everyone in the room's thinking right now. I said, okay, Robert, what's that? And he said, I love the outcome that you're going to help me get my time back by helping me get an assistant. And I absolutely despise the method. I despise that you're creating a course that I'm going to have to study for 20 hours. And then after that, I'm going to have to be the one to go and find my own assistant. And I'm going to follow your whole process for 8 weeks. And when you get to the end, and I still am not going to know if I did it right. And you're asking me to do all this when I already have no time. I really don't like the delivery. So I was kind of blown back by this, and I asked the room, I was just like, okay, so who else shares that opinion? I think there was 14 entrepreneurs in the room and like 12 put their hand up. So I was just like, oh, dang, like this is not good, right? My ego is like panicking when I caught myself and had another one of those moments of clarity. And I just said to myself, Tim, take the coaching, right? Take the coaching. So my brain kind of snapped back into place. And I said to the room, okay, you hate the delivery. What would have to be true that you would give me your credit card today? And like popcorn, people are throwing me ideas. They said, well, we want you to write the job posting. We want you to be the one to come up with the candidates. We want you to be the one to make a suggestion of who we should hire. And we want you to be the one to help onboard the assistant. We want you to be the one to help train them. And we want you to do all this. And I'm writing this down furiously on the whiteboard. And I step back and I'm looking at this whiteboard and I'm going, dang, this would be way harder to build than just an online course. I hate this. But then I had another moment of clarity, and that moment of clarity was, wait, if it's hard for me to build, it would be hard for anyone else to build. And therefore, I would have a nice big moat around this business. Whereas if I had an online course, anyone can create an online course. And so I stepped back, crossed my arms, looked at the whiteboard once more, or the flip chart, I should say. And I looked at the audience of 14 entrepreneurs, and I said, I'll do it. I'll do it. Who's ready to give me your credit card? Incredibly, 8 people from the room that day gave me their credit card. I charged them $1,000 a piece for me to go get their assistant for them. In the next week, once I flew home to Canada, I was kind of just chatting with other entrepreneurs as I do through the week, just kind of friends. And 2 others said, yeah, I would do that. I'd give you $1,000 for that. And I was like, okay. And that's how I got my first pilot program of 10 entrepreneurs who were my first ever 10 clients in my Done For You service. And it was no longer called How to Get a Great Assistant. It was just called Great Assistant. And that's how my company came to be. And it all started with that one question from Richard Koch. What would have to be true about your business such that you could maintain or increase profits while working only 1 hour per day? Now, am I working 1 hour per day today? I am not. I am still on that journey. However, let me say this. We've had over 750 clients now. I can't believe that, almost 1,000 clients in this business called Great Assistant. And that's almost 1,000 entrepreneurs that their lives have been changed. And it's almost 1,000 assistants that their lives have been changed because they've been able to find meaningful work in an entrepreneurial company where there's growth opportunities for them. And of the 750, 800 clients or so that we've helped so far, I actually only did the first 25 files. So I helped that first group of 10 entrepreneurs. I'm the one who did all the work. I'm the one who went out and found the assistants and vetted them and onboarded them and all the rest. And I was also the one who helped that entrepreneur be ready to lead that assistant. So I did all that for those first 10 entrepreneurs in my pilot program, and then the next 15 or so after that. So I did the first 25. But because I had this Richard Koch question in mind, I was seeking to replace myself very quickly. And so I hired, it was me and my assistant, and then I hired a hiring expert to come in, and she started doing all the vetting and matching and writing job postings and all the rest. And from that point forward, I have not been the one to do any of the hiring inside of in our company for our clients. So removing myself first from administration work by getting my own Great Assistant for myself years ago. Then I started the company Great Assistant. We started getting clients, and I replaced myself in production. And so now my production team does all of that. And now what I do all day long is marketing and sales. And I do that for more than 1 hour per week. Now, is there a world where I could be working only 1 hour per day, I should say? Absolutely, yes. So I think my role is actually to be like the Indiana Jones of the business, where I go into all the different areas where we have to solve things, right? How do we get more customers? How do we build a great sales process, et cetera, et cetera. And once I define and design that, then my job is just to turn around and delegate that to a qualified person. And so we're getting closer and closer and closer to being able to define, design, delegate the sales process and define, design, delegate lead generation. I'm probably something like 2 years away from that. And you know what the question is that I keep asking myself kind of every quarter or every other quarter? What would have to be true about my business such that I could maintain or increase profits while working only 1 hour per day? I don't know if I'll ever work just 1 hour per day. I really do actually enjoy the entrepreneurial adventure, and I love taking on intellectual challenges. I think the work will just change for me. I think, I'll always want to provide thought leadership. I really enjoy creating content like this based on my experience to help my fellow entrepreneur on their success path. So, we'll see. We'll see what the future holds. But that one question guides me regularly, and it has for basically, a decade or so. So I'm very curious to know what would have to happen in your business such that you could maintain or increase profits while working only 1 hour per day. Put that in the comments below. And if you found this to be helpful, go ahead and subscribe as well.